Well, thank you, Mike, for that a little bit long but very generous and gracious welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, Debbie and I are honored and delighted to be with you this evening. And we do so on behalf of not only the United States Marine Corps and General Jim Amos, our Commandant, and 192,000 Marines, but as Mike just mentioned, actually on behalf of the Defense Establishment. And I realize you had members from the Defense Establishment and the Joint Staff with you today, but hopefully I will give you just a little different perspective of the admiration and the friendship with which we regard the people of Turkey, the government of Turkey, and the Turkish General Staff and Armed Forces. But it is a special privilege for me to be with you tonight. I thank General Jones, Mr. Haluk Dancer, I thank you very much, Ambassador Richard Owen and Ambassador Holmes, great to be with both of you. I was telling Ambassador Richard Owen the last 2 times we had dinner together, it was in Afghanistan. So this is a much different environment tonight, and I'm grateful for the hospitality, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme for your conference this week and the discussions today, as you can see behind, has to do with Turkish relations with the United States, and it has to do with the partnership, a critical partnership for a changing world. And if you'll allow me, I would like just for a few minutes to talk about the 2 adjectives. I won't talk so much, a little bit obviously about Turkey and a little bit about the United States, but I want to talk about what's critical and what's changing. And I'll do that, if I may, in a historical perspective. I'm acutely aware that last year Vice President Biden was with you, and the year before Secretary of Defense Panetta was with you. So I'm sure, and I'm sorry that the standards have dropped a little bit here. Perhaps reflective of the price of admission at dinner, but I am delighted to put a little different perspective on this, if I may. And instead of a business model or a government model or even an academic model, to pay maybe a little bit of a military model on it, just to let you know how invaluable and how special the relations are between the armed forces and the military, mill-to-mill, between Turkey and the United States. I will do that first and foremost by going back 70 years to 1951-52 in Korea. Turkey, since the 29th of October in 1923, a very valued ally and friend around the world. But for the last 70 years, as both a member of NATO and a member of the UN, a very special ally, a very trusted ally that the United States has treasured the opportunity to stand alongside and to work beside. And in Korea, as a member of the United Nations Command in 1951 and 52, the Turkish Armed Forces distinguished themselves. And that was just a benchmark, if you will, or a start after the formation of the UN and after the formation of NATO, by which Turkey stepped into the modern world and was measured as that trusted ally. They have continued that way for the last 70 years. I had the privilege of working alongside them in UNISOM in Somalia. They have stood with us in UNPRO-4 and KFOR in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo. And today, as we speak today, there are over 500 Turkish soldiers, sailors, and airmen who are working in the capital region as part of ISAF in Afghanistan. So they are indeed a trusted ally, a competent, a skilled, a technical ally, and someone who we look forward to working alongside. So if you go to the theme again about critical partnerships and a changing world, let me, if I may, take a look about how you move from yesterday to today and tomorrow. This coming weekend, we will celebrate the 70th anniversary of the landings in D-Day. The Commandant, who would love to be with you tonight and sends regards, is on his way as we speak to go over and to link up with our British allies and then to go over to Normandy for ceremonies this weekend. It was but several years before that, in the First World War, when many nations learned from the carnage of that war and stepped on the world stage in a different perspective. I had the pleasure last fall of being with some UK and Scottish shipmates and teammates, if you will, and they reminded me of a statue that the Scottish Division has at the Somme, one of the World War I battles in Europe. And the statue has a plaque and an inscription on the bottom, and it says, "On the eve of battle, friends are good." On the eve of battle, friends are good. And I will tell you, if you go to this statement behind me about critical partnerships in a changing world, it is a reminder of why certain friends are good and how much we treasure and value that alliance and that partnership. And that is the particular case between the United States of America and Turkey, and has been, and has been. In that war I referred to in Korea 70 years ago, nonetheless a personage then General Walton Walker, who was the UN commander, said, "The heroic people of a heroic nation, Turkey, have ensured that the 8th United States Army survived an encirclement and saved the 2nd Infantry Division from sure destruction." High praise for a single nation in a large partnership. But that's indicative of the contributions that the Turkish Armed Forces have made as a member of the UN and as a member of NATO for the last 70 years. Now, if you were to fast forward to today, and if we take a look about this changing environment, General Jones and I have known each other for a long time. More importantly, he has tolerated me for a long time. But if you read General Jones's remarks in your programs, he quotes in French that the more things change, the more they remain the same. And this is part of the changing environment that I allude to, and that is the theme for your conference this week. We are worldwide in a period of great change. All of our budgets are downsizing. Here in the United States, we have a thing called sequestration, which 24 months ago, most people didn't know. They couldn't spell it, that was for sure, and they may not have known what it meant. But right now, it equates to somewhere between 10 and 14% of a degradation in our financial resources, and consequently, probably in a degradation of our fighting capability. We will not be able to have as many forces, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. We will not be able to modernize as quickly as we would like, ships, aircraft. We will not be able to sustain as well or as long as we used to. Now, I'm not here to pitch doom and gloom. I'm here to say, as most Marines would, that, hey, we have a 12 or 14% degradation in capability. We will still provide you the most ready force as fast as we can, as well trained as they can be, to do what our nation bids. But in an era of declining resources, you have to look for other ways to make you more ready and to reduce your risk. And we do this in a world that's changing dramatically, too. We do it in a world where the information and the technology is moving faster, where we have cyber threats, where we have threats to our fiscal resources and the way we do commerce and trade. Indeed, we have a world where there is overpopulation, urbanization, undereducation, and extremism, particularly violent religious extremism. So if you have all those threats and challenges, and you have declining resources, what's the best way to stay ready and to get ahead? I would submit to you that it's having good allies. And I would submit to you, just like the statue that the Scots put on the battle at the Somme there, on the eve of battle, friends are good. So I am here today on behalf of not only the United States Marine Corps, but the Department of Defense, to tell you how much we treasure the relationship, how much we look forward to strengthening the relationship in the years ahead, and how invaluable our friends and allies from Turkey are, and how much we want to continue to work with you in the days ahead. Now, how will we do that? Thank you, thank you. So how will we do that? How will we become good partners, critical partners in a changing world? The way we will do that is technologically, operationally, exercises, and education. We will try to touch each of those pillars. Many of you know from your contacts in business, or perhaps from the things that you have heard today and will hear for the rest of the week, we have close cooperative defense ties, close cooperative business ties, close cooperative technologic ties with the Turkish General Staff, with Lieutenant General Erdogan, and with all of our Turkish allies. We're committed to work through the F-35, the JSF, to give us state-of-the-art fifth-generation aircraft that we can work together. We're committed, whether it's Patriot battles or basically long-range integrated air and missile defense. We're committed to unarmed vehicles, unarmed systems, whether it's the Reaper or the Predator. We're committed to the Perry-class ships and to get fast frigates over. We're committed to seashore connectors. There's a lot of things that we have joint national interests in, and we have joint national security interests in. we're critically aware that in the case of Turkey, it is one of those rare and unique countries that is Eurasian. It is European and Asian. Whether you start in the Anatolian plain and you come across the Central Highlands and the mountains, and then you look at the Aegean and the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, you look at the Bosphorus and across into Thrace, we're critically aware of not only the history but the geography your country spans. We know the threats that we can see to the north in places like Crimea in Ukraine. We see the border threats in Syria. We see the instability in northern Iraq. It's not lost on us, just as it's not lost on you. So how we develop this technology, how we develop this cooperative business and defense relationships are critically important to both of us. And at the same aspect as we touch that first pillar on technology and capability, we also want to look about how we build the relationship, how we put the human dynamic in there, how we train together. We look at things like red flag and green flag, about bringing the Turkish Armed Forces and the Turkish Air Force in particular over to Nellis Air Force Base to work air to air, to work air to ground. We look at joint exercises like Agile Spirit, multinational exercises between Turkey, the United States, Georgia, things that provide regional stability, critically important. And then finally, on the most important side, which is the people aspect, there's a saying in the United States that when things get tough, you don't rely on command relationships, you rely on relations between commanders. And the way you develop those habitual, long-lasting, steadfast relations through commanders is to make sure they assimilate culturally and they share common education together. So we're very proud of the FMS and the IMET programs that allow us to exchange students, sometimes Alpha, Bravo, Charlie level schools where you learn technical skills, but also at our command and staff colleges and our national war colleges. As of this year, we have over 320 students from Turkey, military students here in the United States, and almost $200 million worth of foreign military sales and IMED education. That's critical for the way ahead. We treasure that just as I know the Turkish General Staff and the Turkish military does. So this is very, very important. So ladies and gentlemen, if I could use past, present, and future, whether it's from 1923 or 1951, or today in ISAF in Afghanistan, and whether I use technical developments, education, or the people skills, I seek to reassure you tonight how valuable, invaluable this relationship is. And if you'll allow me here, I figure the best thing I can do is a closing quote here from a great leader and a great individual, and it's not George Washington, and it's not George Marshall, it's Ataturk. And Ataturk said, when he was talking about the development of Turkish-American relations, he said, "Thus the Turkish people feel a strong sentiment of love and understanding towards the American people. I do hope that that observation of this fact will encourage further dialogue and warm relations between the two nations, but that this will not be all. I am sure that this will and will also allow the rest of the civilized world to have more goodwill towards one another, to erase all past negative fables and experiences, and thus lead the world towards a more peaceful and lawful experience." We are critically aware that with the government of Turkey, we do things like prosperity instead of poverty, that we do freedom instead of fear, and that we do stability instead of strife. And we rely on not only the Turkish armed forces, but the government of Turkey to help us advance those noble causes in the region and around the world. So on behalf of the armed forces in general and the Marine Corps in specific, I'm delighted to be with you tonight. I would normally close with our favorite saying in the Marine Corps, which is Semper Fidelis, which of course is always faithful. But if you'll forgive me perhaps some bad pronunciation, I will say Kaliji Dostluk, and it's enduring friendship. God bless you. Thank you very much. It's good to be with all of you. Thank you.